it's with great pleasure that tonight we're going to be welcoming Rena Nair, who is CEO of Radby, and Phil Fox from Adaptivist. We're going to be covering Jira product discovery, which we're going to go into in a bit more detail today. We're trying a hybrid thing. We have some people here in Maidenhead, which is where I'm hosting from. And it's a warm welcome I give you to our Atlassian community here in Maidenhead. Just a quick introduction to me and to who I am. So I'm from a company called SquareUp. We're a dashboarding company providing an end-to-end observability layer on top of all the data from wherever it lives, including Jira. We're backed by Knowledge Graph, which means you can join the dots between multiple tools, connecting them all with UI-driven plugins, and providing rich dashboarding and smart analytics to pull together data from both Jira, but also from tools like Azure DevOps and your Azure Cost information to provide end-to-end dashboards, both to the team also for the high-level overview to pull together all of your projects. Great pleasure. I now welcome to the stage Phil.
I'm not going to bore everybody with a long deck. I'm going to let Rena show you the real world and tell you about how it all works. So I'm just going to introduce Jira Product Discovery. But Jira Product Discovery, many of you will have heard about it, but where does it sit in the Jira family? Now, when we think about the Jira family, we have to remember that the Jira family has been around for quite a while. We may not think of it as a family, but it is. Many of us will be familiar with Jira software. And what do we track in Jira software? It's a tool for tracking software development. And as such, it doesn't matter if we follow an agile or a waterfall approach at the end of the day, we still want to track the same things, the epics, the stories, the tasks, the bugs, the improvements, all of that sort of thing. But then we also have Jira Service Management. Now that might be seen as the natural follow-on to Jira software, where you're tracking problems and incidents. You're tracking all of the different service requests and change requests, and maybe other things as well that are outside of the typical IT department. A few years ago, Atlassian renamed Jira Core to Jira Work Management. And of course, Jira Work Management also supports those typical non-IT department tasks. So now you may be thinking, where does JPD fit? But I guess most of you have probably already noticed there's a gap at the front of this diagram. And so what we have is Jira Product Discovery. And Jira Product Discovery only tracks one thing, and that's ideas. Ideas are all about what can you do, and at its simplest form, it's a way of capturing those amazing insights and ideas that are all around your organization, all around you, bringing some level of control to the chaos that may exist, making sure you're building the right thing, and make it a team sport rather than a solo endeavor. So who is it targeted at? Jira Product Discovery is primarily targeted at the product manager. But it's essential that we remember that what they're doing is they're bringing all the input from across the business in a single place. Those could be product opportunities from marketing and sales, technical suggestions from designers and engineers, visions of where they want to go from leadership. We now have one place that the product manager can manage all of these insights at once. So let's just think about this problem space for a second. It's about bringing order to chaos in the ideas and insights. It's about keeping everybody aligned. And more importantly, it's about supporting that flow from those ideas right the way through into Jira Service Management at the end. So let's see a little bit of this in action. We start off with ideas, those insights, and they're all brought together. Those ideas have insights. It captures that. You can then label and type them as you see fit. So you can create an insight. Now, those insights can come from anywhere. They can come from any website, and you can use the Google Chrome app to collect those, Slack, Microsoft Teams, JPD itself, Jira Service Management, Jira Software, and of course, our old friend Confluence. So all of those different sources can provide insights that tie into our ideas. But having the ideas on their own is no more than a to-do list. So let's have a look at what we can do. And here is just one example of how you can now start to prioritize and assess those ideas. Here we're looking at a model that shows you effort along the bottom and impact up on the Y scale. With this impact assessment, you can quickly compare those key criteria. You can do it using forms, formulas, custom fields, whatever you want to build your confidence in your product decisions. Here we're looking at impact versus effort. So no matter whether you're optimizing for market share or revenue or the most number of happy customers, you can model and prioritize this accordingly. Now on this model, we have a very simple thing. We can see that we have the easy wins in the upper left quadrant, the simple fill-in tasks below the major projects in the upper right quadrant, and those money pit projects where you'll get no real benefit, but you will spend a lot of money. And those are the things that you want to revisit and work out, are there better ways of achieving the same output for less investment? Having got this prioritization, that's all well and good. But what we want to be able to do is take that prioritization and share it as a roadmap. And with Jira Product Discovery Roadmaps, you can create custom views of all of your ideas. And more importantly, you can share those with any stakeholder. And when I say any stakeholder, I truly mean any stakeholder. That can be somebody in your team, outside your team, but within your organization, collaborators who are working with your organization, and dare I say it, even with customers. But it's not just about sharing a roadmap. It's also looking at the product timeline. And with the tight Jira software integration, this allows you to seamlessly link all of this together on the same platform, providing that end-to-end traceability. And one of the things you will notice here is the ability to create a delivery ticket from Jira Product Discovery. That is a flying introduction to Jira Product Discovery. If it was too long and you didn't read what I did, job takeaway, JPD turns those ideas from insights into actionable prioritized activities. And at this point, I will stop because that was just a very quick guide to get you started, and hand it over to Rena and Bruce to introduce the next section. Thank you very much for giving me the time to do this quiet introduction.
Thank you, Phil. Rena, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi, Bruce. Hi, Phil, and everybody else. Thanks, Phil, for the introduction. What I want to share today is how we use Jira Product Discovery to accelerate our own product, Jira Snapshots for Confluence. I'm basically Rena Neer, as Bruce mentioned, and I'm the CEO of Radby. Radby being a rather small Atlassian solution partner and marketplace vendor. I'm also the product manager and the person on the service desk and a few other hats, but I'm also the product manager, and hence I'm the person owning our work with Jira Product Discovery. Let me move slide. And before I dive into Jira Product Discovery, I'll spend a couple of short minutes just to show the products, to give you some context and tell us about our team and what we try to do and how Jira Product Discovery helps us. And then I'll move on to actually show some hands-on experience with Jira Product Discovery. So that's a very quick demo of our product. Our product is an app in the marketplace that basically grabs copies of Jira data and presents it in Confluence in a tabular format. The data can be extracted hierarchically. For example, in this table, we have the epics, then all the open issues in the epics, and then the blockers. So there's basically a 3-level hierarchy here that was pre-configured in the snapshot. It's all based on JQL and on the links that actually exist in Jira. The snapshot is, in contrast with Jira Macro, is taken at a point of time. So this one was taken a few hours ago or earlier this morning, and whatever happened in Jira later on was not impact that. So it really captures a baseline of Jira data. People use it for status meetings. So project managers and product managers use it for status meetings and sharing information with stakeholders, maybe stakeholders that are not necessarily in Jira, because this data is viewable by anybody who can view Confluence page. You don't need to have license to Jira to see this data. And then there's another big use case, which is for documenting release and documenting official software specification. So people use it to actually capture requirements, stories, and all the descriptions, and keep them for later on. And once you have configured a snapshot like that, the only thing that you need to do is take a snapshot and you get fresh data from Jira. So that's in, let's say, 3 short sentences what this product is about. And it's on the marketplace. Just to show you where we are in the marketplace, you can see that it's a rather young product. It's not a very old product. We don't have a huge traction. And we struggle and work with each new customer. And that's really impacting how we use Jira Product Discovery, because we work very hard on interacting with the people who download the app and eventually those who convert. And we really try to understand how they use the tool. And if possible, we reach out to people and we ask for their feedback. We do interviews, we record interviews, we discuss them, we brainstorm. So there's a lot of effort on our side to basically answer 2 questions. The 2 core questions that really keep me awake at night is what's the best way that we can help our users? We know that our users love the product, they use it, and we want to be even more helpful to them with a hope that if we become the best product for them, it will then spread and other users will find the benefit as well and will get more traction and will succeed as a product. And the second question that is really, and Phil touched it very nicely, we want to remove noise and waste from our work. So any development that is really not adding value, not helping our users, or creating clutter in the product, or not technically correct, we would have liked to remove them. And I think that every team struggles basically with these 2 core questions. These are common questions to everybody. But it's hard to do that without product discovery, and I will explain why. Another thing that I can tell about us, we are a rather small team. The product is developed by 3 developers. We have a UX designer. There is me who does the product management and the interaction with the customers and the support. And we run basically on a shoestring budget. We have to be financially viable. And that brings it all back to the fact that we want to remove noise and make the maximum impact with whatever expenses and budget we put on actually developing this product. Another thing is that we work across time zone. We work virtually. So the whole team is remote. All our interaction is through Jira, through Slack, through all these means. Using tools like Jira or Jira Product Discovery is our way to survive and to actually make that whole thing work. So what were the problems with the old way that we were working before Jira Product Discovery? As I mentioned, we are keenly listening to everything that we can listen to. So every support, the desk ticket is analyzed, and actually a lot of the tickets that are opened are questions and features and inquiries, and not so many really problems, happily. So there's a lot of information coming from there. Then there's the customer reviews. We have a lot of reviews on the marketplace. And although all of them are 4 stars, happily so far, people tend to write long paragraphs. And well, one of the reasons is that through the support desk, which is the best way to get people, entice people to write reviews, I encourage them to write as much as they can about their experience. So they write it there. And of course, we can always find some nuggets of information of what actually they do with the tool and what they would like to see more. We have deliberate customer discovery interviews, and then we have partners. So our product, for example, has a very deep integration with X-Ray, and we work closely with some of the Atlassian solution partners. and they try the product with their customers, and they come back with different ideas and suggestions and requests. We have our own experience with the product. Being a solution partner means that we also work in projects where we use this product and we see what's actually needed. And we have our monitoring system. So we have Sentry, we have logs, and often we see there some information that can be useful for thinking what actually we need to do with the product. Previously, we didn't have any place to put all these ideas. So there's a lot of information, and how do you make sense for that? And if you try to put it in the backlog, and that's what we tried to do before, it just really becomes a noisy graveyard of ideas. You know all too well that it's very easy to have hundreds, if not thousands, of issues in the backlog. No one ever digs more than the 5 issues that are on the top of the backlog, and everything else is basically forgotten. So it's either some things that you will do immediately in the next iteration, or you forget about them. And sometimes things that are pretty important are just forgotten because they are buried under so much other noise. And things that really was very difficult to do is to evaluate ideas over time. And what do I mean by ideas over time? You hear something from Bruce, and then after a few weeks, Phil mentions the same. Now, if Phil and Bruce talked with the same person, maybe I will remember that it's actually the same idea. But if they talk to 2 different people, or if I happen to forget the first instance, I have no way to effectively find it back and connect the 2 dots and find the fact that we actually have the same idea coming back again. And over a few months, people come back and ask exactly the same thing. And suddenly it's not 1 or 2, but it's a lot of signals that come and tell me, actually, this is pretty important. The last thing that I found really difficult is actually how to capture the cost of a feature in a way that is not really costly for itself. Yes. On one side, you don't want to have your developers sit and invest huge amount of time in just doing a rough estimation for something you will never do because it's not worth it. But on the other side, it's very difficult to evaluate things if you don't have any price tag to them. And Jira Product Discovery actually was a way to capture the information in a way that dealt with those challenges. And I will take you back into Jira Product Discoveries. So this is our real Jira Product Discovery. And I must say that with the presentation from Phil, I felt a little bit shy because I don't use all the features that Phil mentioned, but I will take you through the features that we use and also how we massaged a bit the default setup to fit what we wanted to achieve. First thing to see about Jira Product Discovery, it's one project in your instance. So it's exactly like Jira Service Desk in the sense that it's just one of your projects. The access rights and the licensing is a little bit different. We'll kind of discuss it later. And another thing that I can say about it, if you ever worked with team managed projects, those projects which are Jira Snapshots, Product Discovery, are under the hood behaving like team managed project. This has some implications. I can mention them later on if I'll get to that. But it's important to remember that they behave from admin point of view like team managed projects. Now let's start with the front end. I'll just close the left pan and focus on the view that is actually the linchpin to everything Jira Product Discovery. The first thing that I was thinking when I looked at the screen first time was, wow, this does not look like an Atlassian screen. It seems that Atlassian tried to build this screen from scratch, very much released from different baggages and concepts that they have overall in Jira. probably listening to other trends and other tools that exist in the market today and trying to imitate that view that is a little bit, to me, reminding of Excel. And I think this speaks to the population that Atlassian are trying to address with this tool. They're not trying to capture the software developers. They are trying to really capture the product managers, the project managers, and marketing managers, and people who are less inside the code. And I think that's the reason for this layout. And one amazing thing, for me at least, it's amazing, and I didn't change this default, although I probably will, is that each row that you see here is an issue in Jira, but you do not see the key. So out of the gate, suddenly Jira hides the issue key. And that's, for me, was most revealing about the fact that this really is for Atlassian, a groundbreaking product. Now, they have some very cool field types. So first of all, this is the list of the different ideas that we have. And you can group it. So I think just technically, it's the first time in a Jira that you can group a table, but you can group it. And just the grouping that I chose here is based on what I defined as variant. Variant is a field that I defined, and it can be either cloud only, DC and cloud, or DC only. So basically, because our product, it's fit for data as a flavor or has a delivery platform for data center and for cloud. Some features will be more appealing only to cloud, some only to DC. But somehow this is what I was thinking when I just set up the board. You see how the board is now. Most of the things are basically either common for DC and cloud, or we haven't even gotten to qualify that. So that's telling again, in my mind, there would have been a much bigger difference between requirements coming from cloud only or from DC. And because of this field, I can now clearly see that it's probably far less of a divergence than I was expecting. Then there's this 3 or 2 key fields that product discovery gives you, is the goal impact and the effort. And these are really key to later on evaluating whether a certain feature is worth having or not. For me, in effort, just giving the dots as the weight of the effort was not working because it's not defined. What is actually 5 dots? What does it mean? What are 3 dots? So the way I solved it for us, and again, we are a small team, so maybe it's not a solution that would work in other situations. I added a text field, and I will shortly show you how to define new fields. It's super easy and super nice. I added a text field, and I just defined 5 values. For us, something that is 1 day of work, approximately half a week, less than a week, less than 2 weeks, or bigger. And then what I do, and this is really maybe not efficient, not scalable, but for us it currently works, I manually set up the effort in docs to correspond with the effort text. And the reason I did it is just to make this explicit. I didn't want to have a convention here that when I share it with our chief developer and ask him to estimate, every time the estimation of 5 dots means actually something different. So in that way, I dealt with the fact that the effort needed to be standardized. Goal impact is, of course, something very subjective, especially in our case where we have small number of customers. We are feeling the market, but we don't have huge analytics. We don't have a big machine behind us that we can really do something very quantifiable. It's based on feeling. And to help us with the feeling, we have this goal field that is, again, a field that Jira Product Discovery gives out of the box. And the goal field is basically helping you identify what is the goal that this feature will serve. Just, I will show you what are the values that we currently have. Delight users, win large customers, build network effects, differentiate, increase brand awareness, and complete the feature. So some of them were given by default, and some of them we added ourselves. So something that was not there as a default was win large customers. But for us, it's really important that we win large customers because the whole positioning of our product is for enterprise and larger customers. And we are willing specifically to work harder for these customers. And we have some relationships that feed into that. Now, the design of this field is really much more fun than a typical Jira field. And this is how it came out of the box with the emojis and everything. And I'll just quickly show you if you want to add the option here. You get this editing experience where you can write a new value. And so new goal, give it a color that makes sense to you. Somehow, I don't know why it's all blue, but, and then differentiate with the emoji. And you don't have to use emoji, but you can. So in this particular field, that's how it came out of the box. And we use it. And I'm not sure if it's really added value or not, but it's fun. And this actually is the interaction of how to create more fields. You can easily add fields like that and basically use this type of interaction to define new field and to set the default options for them or the select options, etc. So it's happening from here and it's very accessible and easy. You don't need to go away to admin panels or whatever. It's all here under your fingertips. So we talked about how we dealt with efforts and effort text. I'll show you some other fields that we have actually added. For us, I mentioned the fact that we really target large customers and we have some key customers who have either evaluated or bought and opened a channel of communication with us and asked for specific things. And when they ask for specific things, we want to know that. So I added this field. Every time that there is a new customer that is in our special relationship, I add an option and I can then add him to all the features that they have requested. And in this way, I don't lose sight of what is important to specific customers. And I'll just go back to the insights. For me, the fact that there is the insight field is one of the big key features in Jira Product Discovery. The fact that I can quickly go here and see all the different three occasions that a certain idea came up and from which direction is just a gold mine. It's the opposite of having a graveyard of a backlog that no one looks at. It's here, it's much more condensed, and it's not directly in the eyes of the developers. So developers really appreciate the fact that they don't see all that stuff really in their face as part of the Kanban and our day-to-day work. They know that it's here. And when things surface and go up and become suddenly deliverable, then I basically create from them a parallel development task, and we progress there in the board. Now, impact versus effort, the famous graph that field related to as well. So I was surprised because as a product manager, you feel that what is important because you are in discussions with customers, you hear all the impressions, but in reality, what you will often think is that the latest feedback you got is the most important one. This is the impact versus effort view. You can hover over a point here and go back to see what basically is the feature that is required. And you can click on it, I guess. I haven't tried it, but let's see. Yes, so then you see it here. You can see an expansion and you can make a choice. So I can say that based on that, there are some decisions we have made. This is, for example, a feature that we currently work on. And yes, it's quite an expensive feature, but we heard about it so much. So many people requested it both in data center and in cloud that we are making the big investment to do that. These are actually nice things that people requested and are not so difficult to make. And sometimes they will make a certain customer smile. Phil calls that a filler, but indeed that's the case. But sometimes you just have 2 or 3 days of someone in between big efforts and you can immediately take something that is impactful, will make someone smile and push it to there. Happily, we don't have a lot here, but still these are probably some of them that and indeed they are currently delayed. These 2 features are on hold, although there are some customers who are pushing on them. And maybe at a certain point, we will decide that the impact is worth the effort of making them happen. That's basically how I use Jira Product Discovery today. And it has been already a few months that I use it in this way. And for me, it was just a lifesaver. It's much cleaner. I feel that I'm controlling the data. I have the data that we need to make decisions, but we do that with far less noise to the development team and with far better decisions. So what's my feedback about my experience? I love the product. I think that it's very easy to use. And I think that I prepared actually a pros and cons slide. So let us get to there. The pros is that it's very easy and flexible. It really took me like 15 minutes to half an hour to start working with it and really just gain some benefits. It has a set of good fields out of the box, and the whole interaction of setting up new fields is very easy. The visualization is good. You saw Atlassian really made a fresh start there in terms of UX. And the last thing is that the licensing model is really good. The way that they license it, you basically pay for anybody who creates rows in the view. If you are not someone who creates rows, if you are just contributing or adding comments or need to review the list, you will not pay license. And for me, this is a little bit like Jira Service Management, but in Jira Product Discovery. So they took a little bit the idea of the agent and they use it here. And it's similar to other products that you see out there, like a Figma or whatever. It's really this type of licensing. And I think this works for this particular product. Now, the cons for me, I don't like the fact that it's a team managed project. It's an admin geeky statement, but it just limits how these issues here interact with other issues. I also noticed, for example, that when we try to, so there, whoever liked or didn't like team managed project will know what I'm talking about. The fact that it creates this disconnectivity. For example, if I use this configuration that I just showed you in Jira Product Discovery for Jira Snapshots, and I have another project, I cannot share the configuration And that I have actually another project and I could not share the configuration, and it was pretty annoying to have to reconfigure everything twice. So that's for me a cons. I don't know why they did it, because Jira Service Management is not in the same philosophy, but I'm sure Atlassian have a good explanation for that. And for me, the fact that you are hiding the Jira issue key by default doesn't work. I like the Jira issue key. I'm attached to that, but happily you can change this default behavior. That's basically my feedback so far on my experience with Jira product discovery. And I'm inviting any questions or comments, and I'll be happy to show more if there are any questions.
Thank you, Rena. Really good to see Jira Product Discovery in action, see how you use it in the real world. I've looked at it theoretically, but haven't got quite as far as using it in the real world. So my question, while waiting for those to come in online, was about collecting feedback from end users. So everything you've shown is about collecting feedback as a product manager and then inputting it into Jira Product Discovery. Is there a method getting feedback from the wider public? So, for example, hooking this up to feedback boards on a website you're aware of.
I haven't tried it. What I am doing, and this is very manual, it's maybe not scalable, but that's what works for me. I create the things that I add to Jira Product Discovery. So when an insight is created here, it's something that already passed either myself or one of my colleagues, like a minimum qualification, and we make sure that the insight that is there means something to us, has the information that we will need later on to do something with it. So therefore, I was not so interested in connecting automatically. I am guessing, because that's what Phil showed, and I'm guessing there is a way to channel this automatically, but I haven't tried.
Is there any additional color you have to offer there?
The easiest way I find is to use the Google Chrome, which literally allows you with almost a single click to be able to add things straight into from whatever tool you have a web browser of as an insight item.
So you're saying there is an extension to Chrome that is a Jira Product Discovery extension?
Yep.
Let us find Chrome Jira Product.
Sabrina, while you look that up, Phil, is the intention that this is as a product manager, and you're the product manager looking to quickly add insight, or as an end user, presumably as a product manager?
Yeah. So as a product manager, this is you can take feedback from any website and add it into your Jira Product Discovery. It's not that your user would directly use the Chrome extension. You would still use all of the tools that you know and love for interacting with that feedback loops, etc. So it could be a JSM request that you could bring across. It could be a comment on a Confluence page. It can be whatever you want. What I would say is Jira Product Discovery is focused on the life of the product manager and the team that surrounds that product manager, not so much the life of the end user, although obviously the end user insights are really important to get in there.
Makes sense. Yeah. For us, we use, speaking of our own personal use case, we use an external tool to actually collect that feedback. And then it comes down to sifting and sorting. The tool we use has a front end, so you can expose a way of collecting that feedback to the end user. And the only real benefit there is the ability to get end users to upvote on items. But aside from that, everything that's in Jira Product Discovery is significantly better than the tool we use, which I will not name now. All this left to say is thank you very much, Rena and Phil, for presenting. It's been really great. Really good to see what Jira Product Discovery can do. For me, as a product manager, I will definitely be putting it to good work when I get back to business as usual. And if you like what you've seen today, I would really appreciate it if you followed us on LinkedIn. We're at Maidenhead Atlassian Community Events. And the reason why that's important, obviously, you can hear about what's coming up. But more importantly for me is I want to live stream these events via LinkedIn live events. And I'm not allowed to do so via LinkedIn until I have 150 followers. So the more followers, the better. I'd much appreciate a follow. All that's left to do is say thank you very much, Rena and Phil, once more. And until next time we meet, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.